Okay, so the first question here says that Pavani collects 20.3 pounds of metal to take to a recycling center, and the center pays her for 18.4 pounds of the metal, and the rest of it is refused. I'm waiting, Micah. Okay, perfect. So our goal here is to figure out how much of Pavani's collection was refused in pounds. So when she goes to this recycling center, she has 20.3 pounds, but they only take 18.4. So the rest of it she has to take home. That's how much was rejected. If we wanted to figure out how many pounds they did not have, or how many pounds she was not able to recycle, how do we think we would figure that out? If I know she goes there with 20.3 and they take 18.4, how would I figure out how much she has left? What math operation would I want to do here? You'd want to subtract, right? And since we have decimals, I would just pop this into a calculator just to make sure. 20.3 minus 18.4. And when I subtract them, I get 1.9. And don't round it, enter it as a decimal. You put 1.89? Oh, you added the 8 by accident. Gotcha. Okay. Alrighty. Micah, are you good to go on to the next one? All right, number 2. John has a piece of string that is 6 3/4 inches long, and Carrie has a piece of string that is 7.5 inches long. We want to know how much longer is Carrie's string than John's string, and we want to enter our answer as a fraction without units. So for this one here, I'm going to do subtraction again, right? Like we did with the last one to figure out how much bigger Carrie's string is. And you can type this into that Desmos calculator that I use all the time. When you're typing in mixed numbers like this, it's a little bit different. So I'm going to start with the bigger fraction, which is 7.5. So I'm going to type in a 7, and then I'm going to put a space, and then I'll do my 1/2. And I want to subtract that from 6 3/4. So I'm going to do my 6 space, and then type 3/4. And it gives me my answer as a decimal, but I can convert it to a fraction by clicking that button. So Carrie's string is 3/4 longer than John's. Nope, we don't put a negative sign because our answer here is actually positive. Because if Carrie's string is bigger, then that means that it has an extra 8.4 and it's not missing the 8.4. So good question. So our answer here would be positive 3/4. All right. Number 3. For number 3, we want to rewrite our subtraction problem as an addition expression. Do you guys remember what we do when we are changing from subtraction to addition, what this problem would look like? Isabella remembers. Micah, do you remember? Do you need a refresher? Okay. So when you have problems like this, all you need to do is take your expression. Nothing changes. You're not taking anything out. You're not moving anything around. And what you do is you add your plus sign in between your first number and that subtraction sign. So you're not moving order, you're not changing your numbers, you're not flipping them around, you're not doing anything crazy. Everything stays the same, except now we just need to add a space to put that plus sign in the middle. Okay, so when we do that, my 11.5 is still going to be first. Now I need to put my plus sign because my plus sign now comes right after my first number. And then this minus sign and 7.2, they're now like a pair. So I'm just going to pair them together. So I'm going to have a negative 7.2 next, and I'm going to put parentheses around that. So the only thing that we do is add that plus sign directly after our first number, and everything else stays the same. So this whole thing right here is what you would want to type in for your answer. And we don't need to put what it equals because it's not asking for an equation. If it says equation, that's when you need to have your equal sign. It says here that all we need is an expression. So since the only thing we need is an expression, we just have to type this in. So Micah, let me know when you've typed that in, and then we can look at number 4. Yep, with the parentheses, yes. Perfect. Alrighty, number 4. We want to find the difference in the simplest form. Maybe other students didn't need help, or maybe they forgot that I had one today. But these aren't mandatory, so it's not required for students to show up unless they would like some help. Alrighty. On this one here, I'm going to take these mixed numbers that were given, and I'm going to type them into my calculator. So I'm going to do 3, do my space, type in 2/5, and I'm subtracting that from 1, do my space, and 1/10. And we can see here that I get 2.3. Okay, so if I get 2.3, I need to figure out which one of these fractions is equivalent to 2.3. Okay, and if you hit the fraction button here, it will give it to you as an improper fraction, which isn't necessarily what we want, but we can use this improper fraction to help us get to our answer. Okay, and if I know I have 23/10, if I type in this 2 space 3/10, okay, and I hit enter, will it give it to me here? Yes. So all I have to do after this is type in all of these fraction options. And then once I've done that, I just need to convert it to that fraction, and I need to pick the one that is equivalent. If I try it with 2 1/5, and I hit this fraction button, it will give me a different fraction, which is not the same as this top one. So for questions like these, utilize your calculator because it'll help make it go a little bit quicker. So 2 3/10 would be the one we want to pick here. So it's the 2 3/10. Yes. And it's positive. So don't pick the negative one. It's 2 3/10. There is a way that you can change it to where you get common denominators and then you subtract them. You can absolutely do that, right? If I wanted to change that 2/5 to have a 10 in the bottom. If I multiply top and bottom by 2, I'd get 4 over 10. So then all I would do is subtract my whole numbers. So 3 minus 1 gives me 2. And then 4 minus 1 would give me that 3. So you can do it that way too if it makes more sense to you. If that's how you learned it and you like that better, then you can absolutely do that. Alrighty, here, this one is trickier because we have these negatives. So with this one, when you're typing it into your calculator, make sure that what you're typing in looks exactly like what you have here. So I have 5 over 8 minus, I'm going to put my parenthesis, and negative 1 over 4. Close my parenthesis, hit enter. I have a decimal, but I can convert that to a fraction. And when I do that, I get 7/8. So again, make sure that, whoops, this expression we have here on our checkpoint is the same thing that we're typing into our calculator. So for this one, we would pick 7 over 8. Micah, are you good to go to the next one? Perfect. We want to select which expressions correctly show a subtraction problem rewritten as addition. Remember when we did this one earlier, right here? The only thing that changed was I added a plus sign directly after that first number. My first number was 11.5, right? In my final answer, my first number is also this 11.5 here. Okay, this is huge. Your first number going from your original expression to your next one needs to be the same. If it's not the same, it's automatically wrong. Okay, so these top two here, where I'm going 5 minus 2, and then I switch to 2 plus negative 5, this is wrong because my first number here is a 5, and my first number on the right side is a 2. So we want to make sure our first number is the same. So if I look here, I have 6.3 and then I have negative 6.3. Those two numbers are not the same. A positive and a negative are two different numbers. So those first two are out of the game. We can't pick those. If I look at the third one here, I have 8 minus 1, and then I have an 8. That's good. I have my plus sign right after my first number, and then that minus sign that was in front of my 1 is now attached to it. So this one looks good. What do you guys think about this fourth one down here, the 10.81? Do you think this one is correct or do you think it is incorrect? Isabella thinks it's correct. Micah said, where do you see the subtraction? The subtraction is in between. So on the left side, our subtraction is right here, right? It's in between our two decimals. And then on the right side, our subtraction gets attached to that second number, which was our 4.1. Okay. Perfect. So Micah, do you think that if this top one, this 8 minus 1, and then it goes to 8 plus minus 1 is correct, do you think that this second one that has 10.8 minus 4.1, and then it equals 10.8 plus minus 4.1, do you think this one would be correct? Perfect. Yes, this one is correct. And then what about this bottom one with those fractions? I have 1/2 minus 1/3, and then it goes to 1/2 plus minus 1/3. Do you guys think that bottom one is correct or incorrect? Micah says yes. Isabella says correct. You guys are both correct. So these bottom three, the 8 minus 1, 10.8 minus 4, and 1/2 minus 1/3, all three of those would be correct here. All right, number 7. This one is a bit tricky. Okay, so we have this number line here, and the easiest way to do this is to give those letters on our number line a number value. And to do that, I kind of just have to look and see where they are on my number line, right? I have 0 in the middle, and then I have, it looks like 1, 2, 3, and then 4. I'd have -1, -2, and -3. If I look at where n is on my number line, n is right in between 0 and -1. What number would represent n here? What number would n represent? One half, very close. So Micah has that negative. That negative is important because it's on the left of our 0. So n is going to be -1/2. I'm going to put 0.5, but that's the same. It's the same thing. I just want to put the decimal. And then let's look at m. M is in between 2 and 3. So what decimal would m be if it's in between 2 and 3? It'd be 2.5. Perfect. Okay. So now we know what numbers m and n represent. The easiest way to do this one is to go through these different answer choices and do what this math is telling us and see if our answer is either going to be positive or negative. Let's look at that first one where I have -n minus m, okay? When I take my numbers here and plug them in for my variables, my negative on the outside stays the same. Where n is -0.5, so I'm going to write -0.5 in place of n. I have my minus sign in the middle, and then for 2.5, I'm going to replace that with m, 2.5. Then let's type that into our calculator. So I have a minus, I have -0.5 minus 2.5. And when I hit enter, it looks the exact same. Notice how I get a +3 here. Our answer said that it should be negative. So this first one is not correct because our answer is positive, not negative. Let's check our second one. On the second one, we have just n minus m. So that means I would have -0.5 minus 2.5. And we want to see if that is going to give us a positive answer. So let's try this one. I get -3, right? That is not positive, that is negative. So it cannot be the second one. Isn't it 2 plus on the last one? It's okay. So can you repeat your question for me? Let's double check it. So on both of the next two, we have n plus m, right? So n plus m. So I have negative 0.5 plus 2.5. So if I double check that in my calculator, I get a positive 2. So the value of n plus m, when I add them together, would be positive. So yes, Micah, you are correct. And then let me know when you both are ready, and we'll do that last question on the checkpoint. Alrighty, last one here. So for this one, I've seen a lot of people get this one wrong because they're putting too much for their answer. I don't want, the question isn't asking you to write an expression or an equation. It's not asking you to put, well, I'm adding this number and then I'm adding this number and it equals this. It's only asking you for the result of the subtraction problem. And if you remember from a few videos ago when I was talking about number lines, wherever your second arrow ends, that is your solution. So if I look at my second arrow here, this red one, and I follow it to my number line, what decimal does it land on? Where does my red arrow end? Negative 0.5, which means that this result of this subtraction problem is negative 0.5, and that is all that you have to type for it. So you guys should both be able to submit it, and then you should have both have 100%.